Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum to Puan Farah Shazwani. Today our group will present about school library management system. This is the table of content of our presentation. The stakeholder for our project is that me, AMIRUL bin JOHAN as project manager. Secondly, as Muhammad IQBAL Arif bin MAZRI as the system designer. Thirdly, Muhammad NAZMI Husaini bin NORAZMAN as the programmer. And fourthly, Muhammad SAMMUEL bin MARDZUKI as the technician. And lastly, Persatuan Ibu Bapa dan Guru Sekolah Menengah Kebahasaan Daman Datuk Harun as the client. Our company is that Dylan Blue Company, a company founded by 4 people, provided system as a service (SaaS) located locally in Petaling Jaya High School. Our business information is that operation of the library is handled by 3 librarian staffs, 4 librarian prefects. The operation hour is within 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and closed on school holiday. Our company strategy is that first we market the company to the public to attract libraries visitors. Then we allow students to come whenever they are free to spend their leisure time at the library, and then create an environment where students can use library services at ease. And lastly, promote a modern library that evolves with technological advancement. Our business process is that first students find a book on the shelf labeled with categories or of genres and subject. Secondly, find an empty spot to sit down and read the book. And thirdly, go to the counter and bring the book to a librarian to borrow a book. And lastly, librarian need to fill up the information of the book and the student. The business process continue. In the system, the book that the student borrowed will be marked as borrowed. And then the system will also state the date of the return of the book. And then the librarian will then store the information on the local library's computer. Then the library will also update the information if the book is missing or late returned. And lastly, new books arrival or old book removal will be updated manually by the librarian in the locally inside Microsoft Excel file. The problem of our project is that first, we lack of efficiency when finding books. This is because students have to wander around in search of books. Secondly, it's hard to borrow and return books. This is because long queue to borrow books resulted in blocking library pathway. And lastly, overstaff. This is because required to maintain movement flow of the students, help students to return book to the right shelf, and manage tasks at the counter. The solution of the problem is that a system called SMKTDH library system is now introduced by our company to assist in as a management system, search tool to find a book, reduce staff manpower, and reduce queue length. Our project objective is that to develop a system that improves the school librarian workflow by having a search system to find every book on the shelf. This is to increase the efficiency of the school librarian and student in managing books that want to be borrowed or returned. Our desired area of impact, uh, firstly, is about operational. We want value of the new system for inventory tracking, which shorten the time taken and energy consumption for physically going from shelf to shelf to keep track of what available. Secondly, more systematic system to eliminate human errors. The approximated metrics for this is that reduce human interaction of librarian staff and student about 70%, and then decrease human error for librarian staff to 0%, and then increase student technical skill in using the system by 20%. The time frame taken for this all to apply is that around 4 months. Then area of impact again, the operational, about the successful project development will be measured with using the systematic systems such as a librarian to book section kiosk and computer that able to reduce human error from 40 to 0% within 4 months of time frame. And also students technical skill increase when using the librarian book section kiosk and computer from 0% to 10% within 4 months of time frame. This is our preliminary project requirement. Firstly, about the project scope, the functional requirement about explaining the expected behavior of the product. The system can read every book barcode, book title, authors, and ISBNs. The system must be available 24 hours except weekends. The system can generate student registration and book registration. The system is not for online. It is merely used in searching, borrowing, and returning books. It also eliminates users that are not bound to the institution anymore. The project scope for non-functional requirement is that contain any requirement that are not covered by functional requirement. So firstly, the performance. Complete tasks within minimum time taken. Reliability, carry requests as planned. Security, user authorization. Then scalability, expandable to accommodate many users. And then usability, to simple to use graphic user interface. And then accessibility with desktop program that would be installed on the computational root node server. And lastly, maintainability. Minor changes would not be damage the system. So this is the project scope. Is that system database and for student and staff of SMK Taman Datuk Harun only. The boundary of this our project is that one account is the limit for all student and staff. Book barcode needs to be scanned at the library counter. And our scope change control is that scope change request form must then be filled by the requester that want to change the scope. The issues within the scope is that scope creep, scope leap, and scope group. Firstly, scope creep. The example of the situation is that in a situation where SMKTDH library system scope is changed frequently, but there are no control procedure that record the change request, it will develop scope creep since the scope will keep changing without notifying some of the stakeholder about the changes. Secondly, about the scope leap. A major change in the scope of a project, such as the scope project scope, only includes students and staff of the Taman Datuk Harun. However, in the middle of the project still ongoing, someone want to change the scope to include general public people can also use the system. And thirdly, scope group. When Dylan Blue Company want to start the project, but the project was totally done without any boundaries or scope, restricting the requirement that need to be met. The project will then proceed as a large-scale project that keep on expanding scales in what the company want to achieve and will eventually lead to excess budget expenditure and unfinished project. The target market of our project is that first for school staff within 13 to 55 years old, and then student within 13 to 17 years old, and library and prefects. The potential competitor is that firstly the Apollo Power to Republic. It is a company integrated library system, library service platform that provide the service which is exclusively designed for public libraries. Next. And the second competitor is the Alexandria. It is a company that provide library management software for configurable interface, setup, and hosting choices for librarian and customers. Next. The third competitor is that Follett Destiny Library Manager. It is used by more than more K-12 schools and district than any other platform for managing library resources. And then next. That's all from me. I will pass to Muhammad Nazmi.
Alright, thank you, Mr. AMIRUL HAFEEZ. Now I'm going to explain our financial analysis for third year estimation cost. So the first year, we are going to pay the services, hardware, workforce, marketing, utility, maintenance, and insurance. So for hardware, there are two computer sets that we have to pay.
Weh, kau set masa aku rasa yang yang ni. Dia
Alright, thank you, Mr. AMIRUL HAFEEZ, for explaining the previous part. Now I'm going to explain about the financial analysis of our company. We are estimated about the third year cost estimation. For the first year, we have paid the service, hardware, workforce, marketing, utility, maintenance, and insurance. For hardware, we paid for the computer set, which is having 2 units, and barcode scanner, and the Wi-Fi set. And the workforce, we pay for the salaries for our team members, project manager, system designer, programming technician. For marketing, we paid for the marketing services, the poster and the banner that we made for our system. And then the utility, we paid for our Wi-Fi services, which we subscribe every month, and the water and the electric. And the maintenance also, repair and help services. And the insurance, in case for something goes wrong. The total estimated cost for the first year is the 53,155 and 4. Okay. So the next year, now we are no longer need to pay for the hardware that we purchased on the first year. So the only thing we have to pay for our cost estimation in the second year is the service, workforce, marketing, utility, maintenance, and insurance. The total estimation cost for the second year is the 46,104. Okay. And then our third year for estimation that we are going to pay for the service, workforce, marketing, utility, maintenance, and insurance. For the marketing part, we are no longer need to pay for the poster and banner. So we have deduct a certain amount of money. Now we are going to pay only for 45,804. Okay. So now before we need to understand the income statement for our company. The total estimation benefits, the cash flow of Thailand Blue Company. The total net profit is the 34,096 and estimation profit for a year. The values of the profit is estimated by gross profit minus operating system. And our value is increased in subsidies by the first year, which is we multiply by 70%. So the first year we have the subsidies of about 51,867. The second year we have around 1,074. And the third year we have around 149,896 ringgit. The total estimation benefits that we calculated for the 3 years is the 155,702. So below that we have the estimated cost, total cash inflow, and net cash flow. From that, we estimated the prices that we have to pay for each year, and then we use the subsidies that we receive in each year to calculate the net cash flow. Continue. So from this net present value, we can see that the first year cash flow is negative 632,000, which is in extra cash from previous subsidies. That we understood that in the first year, we still need to spend more money in our system. The second year cash flow is 42,070 and the third year is 104,92. Our NPV, which we calculate using the formula at the right side of the slide, and we have the return rate of the project 10%. We calculated that our NPV is going to be 49,486 and 82 cents. Okay. And now we are going to calculate about our payback period for the system. So the payback period that we use to calculate using the formula on the left side, which is A plus B over C, which A means that the last period with a negative cumulative cash flow, B is the absolute value of cumulative cash flow at the end of the period A, and the total of cash flow during the period after A. So based on the table below, you can see that we start to receive money we start to receive profit on the third year. So to calculate based on the formula below, formula on the left, we see that on the second year, we calculate the cumulative cash flow divided by the total of number we receive on the third year. We can see that our payback period is 2.2 to 1 years. Okay, continue. Okay, the next is our return on investment. Our ROI is total expected benefits minus total expected cost divided by the total expected cost. So the total expected benefits, as we calculate earlier in the income statement, we have around 155,302 minus by 57,954 divide by 57,954, which we gain about 168.5% of return on investment. Yeah. Now, we are going to look at our work breakdown structure inside the schedule estimation. So there are 5 things that we are going to do, which is the planning, facilities, marketing, operation, and both. In planning, we have to allocate required resources, we have to prepare the blueprint, we have to allocate budget and cost preparation, and schedule for resources. For facilities, we have to install procedure, and inside installing procedure, we have to setting up interior decoration and furniture, installing electrical wiring and instrument, designing facilities, And the third one inside facilities is developing the system. By developing the system means that we want to lending and borrowing the system for the school library. And then the marketing, we plan for marketing management, and then we targeted marketing for the students. And for operation, we library opening and closing operation, the operational planning. And the last thing is the book, which procuring reading materials, processing reading materials, and reading material classification. Right. So this is our Gantt chart for schedule estimation for operation for 4 months. So the first thing we're going to do is the initiated project. The initiated project are going to last about 1 month, starting from the April 1 until the April 30. So as you can see from the Gantt chart, the first 5 days we are going to understand about our business case development for this project, and then we continue to executing a feasibility study for this project. And the next one, we are going to look at the project charter establishment, stakeholder identification, and then we are going to initiate teamwork by selecting project team member and create project office. Okay. Continue from the previous Gantt chart, we are going to review the project execution, confirming approval to proceed for the next project phase. Now we are going to continue at the project planning. The project planning started on at the end of 5th day before starting the May until before starting the June. And set project planning, we need to set definition for project objectives, scope, goals. We draw a work breakdown structure. We make a Gantt chart for the planning for the communication, for the planning for management risk management assessment, and project planning for designing the delivery system requirement. And for the next month, we are going to do the project executions. And we can see that we want, inside project execution, we want to gather team members for the development team, allocate resource alignment, initiate project management, execution planning. We are going to track system for task allocation, execute task assignment, meeting for reviewing task update. And then review project plans, schedule, update and change planning of the project as of needed, start to build the delivery system. This thing we are going to do inside of the month of June and July. Okay, for project performance, we are going to start on July, or at the end, starting from at the end of the June until before entering August, which is inside project performance, we are going to have calculate and measure schedule and budget for the project. We are going to point out crucial tasks deliverable, compute and estimate whether the project is still on track following the plan. And we are going to trace and track development step of the project to calculate progress. So at the last month, for our 4 months of operation, we are going to do the testing. We are going to conduct testing of the project. We are going to occasional maintenance. We are going to observe, monitor, and analyze our system. Okay, this is our timeline of the schedule estimation in more detail in the duration, as explained earlier. All right.
Okay, so I will be explaining for the critical assumption part. The first thing, the number of the student that will use the system will increase dramatically once it is implemented. The number of the student registered for the school is increasing annually. The huge number of students will require a bigger compatible hardware and software. The staff of a librarian can be reduced to only one, and librarian prefect can be reduced to 2 people. So the reduced workforce might affect the library during the first few weeks of the system operation. It is expected that the system will bring better benefits since its efficiency is not limited with physical energy. For the third critical assumption is the money received from capital is saved incrementally in the next year. The subsidies received by capital, the amount of cost used is not exceeding its capital. The library did not have another source of profit outside of capital. So next, the potential risk. The first potential risk is technological services are also exposed to online cyber threats such as hacking. Steal the data stored in the system, destroy all the data stored. the technology services are vulnerable to risks such as electricity supply problem occur from short circuit or bad weather. And thirdly, the risk can also come from its user. So some user might not be a computer literate to use the system and need to take their time to learn how to use the system properly. So finally, the constraint. The student need to be an expert in navigating a system. The system need to be consistently operate, require a constant monetary supply to get the database of the system to receive occasional maintenance, consume electrical power to get the hardware operate, need a high-speed internet to run it smoothly online. The system will require technical experts to monitor its operation to ensure that the system runs effectively without any issue. So next, the resource required, people. The project manager hold the responsible to monitor the project development progress and required to lead the team to achieve project completion with the provided estimated time period. The client required to fund the project by providing budget. The budget is to be prepared based on the requirement needed. System designer responsible to analyze and determine the program requirement that suit the best with the system. Programmer required to develop the system by coding, debugging the system, and troubleshooting the system. So lastly, the technician have the responsibility to do a maintenance on crucial system operation periodically. Next, the technology. So this is the table of the resources we use, the hardware, and the tools needed, the tools that need to be used in order to proceed with the project completion for the hardware. It will be provided by Persatuan Ibu Bapa dan Guru, which is PIBG, SMK Taman Datuk Harun. So the software is Microsoft Access, software tools to be used to providing database for the user. So it will be provided by Dylan Blue Company, which is our company. So next, the facility, the utility bills, fees that need to be covered during and until the completion of the project, such as electricity, water, supplies, and Wi-Fi connection, provided by PIBG, SMK Taman Datuk Harun. And next, the marketing fees that revolve around the project promotion and project advertisement, and provided also by PIBG Taman Datuk Harun.
Okay, for this part, this is the project administration part. So for the Dylan Blue communication plan, we have 3 different communication methods. We have the emails, meetings, and open project management. So each communication has a different frequency and certain type of goals. For the emails, we have the project status report weekly for each project status to be stated for the team members of Dylan Blue team and plus the project sponsors. And then we have the team standout to see what team member aspires to achieve the goals during the particular day for one day daily. And then we have project review at certain milestones for the entire project to see the deliverables, remarks, and determine the next step to be taken. We have the post-mortem meeting at the end of the project to see which criteria work, discuss the appropriate measure that should be taken. And then we also have, last but not least, the open management by Trello app to update the task progress for all the team members. So moving on to the quality management plan. Here we have the quality management plan architecture, where quality philosophies, core values, quality standard procedures, methods, control, assurance, and learning improving to generate a much user-friendly mature software or processes. Then we have the quality assurance, where we try to see the product or service improvement to be reviewed, discovered, and evaluated by the Dylan Blue company. And then quality control to see the outputs of the project, whether or not it fulfills the acceptance criteria during the quality control by the Dylan Blue company. Then there is the quality standard to ensure that at the end of the project, it fulfills the standards during the quality standards by the Dylan Blue again. And last but not least, to wrap it up, the stages of quality management plan, all those 4 stages which have been mentioned before. So next, this is the part where we show the prototype of our SMK Harun library system. So here we have the front page. As you can see there, we are welcomed by the member ID and the password. So users have to log in to using the IDs and password, and then there is a if they are new to the system, they need to register with all the details given there to insert information, as you can see on the second screen. So next we move on to the further part of the prototype. We have the home page where the user can borrow, select the menus to borrow books, return the books, or add a new books to the collection, or remove book list, or the library log itself. And when you will see here, to ensure the database is fully secure, we have the book list page where they list all the books, the ratings, the author, the date of publication with the certain codes provided by the library of SMKTDH. So next off, here we have the borrow book page where the user can borrow the book by entering the book ID, member ID, date of borrow, and the projected date of return, and then they would continue to the return book page. When they decided to return the book, then they have to pretty much do the same kind of method as the borrowing book. They enter the book ID, the member, the initial fine date. This is will only occur if they somehow late, return the book pretty late. So, and then the total fine amount will be calculated by the system, and the user have to pay how much fine it is based on how late they return the books. And then there are also for the administration part for the owners of the system to add the book function. So any new books, yeah, they have to enter the subject, the title, the author names, pretty much every infos of the book in order to add in the book details into the system so that the students, the users can borrow it. So moving on again to here we have a personal library log page for the user. As you can see there is pretty much a transaction log for the books that has been borrowed out, the book that has been returned. We have the details of the student, the picture of it, pretty much the last book that they have managed to borrow it, any details, copy stats, notes, what needs to be looked up, and last but not least, for the admin system, we have the remove book page. So any books that is obsolete, that is not in the school library, can be removed by entering the book ID. So for the future reference, the students, the user would not be able to borrow the book because the book itself is not there in the library. And so that is all for the prototype of our system. So we are moving on to the change management plan, either to develop, adopt, or a strategy for change in case of things happening. As you can see there is the strategy of change from rational and empirical approach to the environmental adaptive approach. All these four approach are dependent to the project. So for the Dylan Blue Company, the suitable approach for our project is that we decided to go with the power cohesive approach where all concentrated efforts to change or wherein a higher authority figure pushes his will on a lower subordinate. Or so if there's any changes, the person in charge would be the ones to change, to push, to make changes and inform her subordinate. So on the bright side, it produces excellent effects quickly, but on the downside, it causes at the expense of hurting relationships, breaking trust, and holding back any voluntary commitments when it comes to the team leader and the team member. So next, we have implementation and the project closure plan. So for our project implementation approach, we decided to use the parallel approach for our system. It is a method where both the new and old system run simultaneously for a certain period of time before I actually transition to the new system itself. As you can see there for a diagram, as the time goes by, the old system and new system actually run at the same time before moving on to the new system completely. And the benefit of this parallel approach is that the new system as a new solution will be implemented at the same time as the old system, and it could avoid unnecessary downtime since the user can use the system by interchanging between the old and new system without having much problem. And that it reduces the total dependency on the new system. So by right, the user itself may be able to slowly learn how to use the new system while still referring to the old system itself. So it reduces the whole total dependency on the new system. But the cons to the parallel approach is that it consumes a higher resource when it comes to cost and time. Consider that both system has to run on a certain period of time, so much cost is needed and much time is needed for the new system to actually operate by itself. So that is all for the implementation. So for the implementation and the project closure plan, we have the pretty much the last available phase for the project lifecycle. So the project closure report will describe the project completion based on the scope, cost, quality, and the time established at the initial phase of the project based on our discussion at the Dylan Blue Company. So the completeness of the project can be determined by whether or not the user requirement has been fulfilled and the approval of the formal authorities, our sponsors, the whole team members, the Dylan Blue Company, and then the report itself on the final performance has been submitted by the company, and then the acknowledgement from what we can learn from this project. So next, this is on the continuation of the implementation and the project closure plan, but on the administrative closure. So project documents will be collected and analyzed together with the scope deliverable assessment by the Dylan Blue Company, and then the project manager, which is AMIRUL HAFEEZ, will definitely check project deliverable and completion, and then the stakeholders, which is all of us, plus the sponsors, will definitely verify on the project formal acceptance whether or not this project can be accepted for it formally or not in the papers, and then evaluate the project members and reviews their contribution to the project itself, how much we contribute to making the system a success, and document all the errors and mistakes throughout the project and to avoid similar mistakes in the future projects. So the element of this administrative closure includes provide projects work documentation, provide documentation on the lesson learned, analyze success and failure rate of the project, analyze the project management effectiveness, and last but not least, verify the project requirements and specification. And with that, marks the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for listening on behalf of me and myself and the Dylan Blue Company. Thank you very much once again.